So Pickerington North is a long ways away, especially if you miss an exit when you're driving down there.
Who is driving?
Who was navigating?
Roth, he'll turn, give, Terry, busting into the open field. There he goes, Jayden Terry, Grandville with an answer, and another Bulldog win. Give the scurries fake, Biss in the backfield, evading a man, throws out of a tackle, incomplete. Zeros across the scoreboard. Harper Woods have won the state championship, their first in school history, in unbelievable, thrilling fashion. Fake handoff, guy up the middle, big hole, bursting over the 40 to the 45-50, angling right at the 40, 35-30, racing to the 25, 20, outside the numbers, 10, 5, touchdown, Muskegon, Mackay guy, 80 yards to the house.
Hello, welcome to Dawg Pod. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Timmer. This is Michigan game night. I don't know what we're going to talk about. No, we were just joking right before we went on air. Like, I actually don't know. Like, the whole point of these podcasts was to keep them each shorter when we're going to 2. Mm-hmm. Last week, that we just did 2 hour and 10-minute long shows last week, and I'm a little afraid. Again, behind the call, we did them in opposite order. We just finished playing our Power T challenge. Make sure you watch it. It's something.
It is
something. It was a game of. It was a high school football game for sure. It was like if you thought 2 Power T teams would play each other in maybe 2 Division 8 Power T teams played each other in high school football. That's exactly what this looked like. So welcome to Dawg Pod. Again, like, subscribe, follow across social media. Check out the MGN shop. I know there have been a couple people already that have been buying some stuff to start this year, a couple even bulk orders of different stuff. We don't know. I'll kind of put this out there. So we don't actually know who orders. I can just kind of see roughly how many of what was ordered for whatever. It all goes through Teespring. They handle it. If you have any issues with Teespring, either in terms of shipping or quality or whatever else, let me know. I will do certainly what I can to try to help everybody out in that front if you order something through the MGN shop. So make sure you find that. And, we got a lot to talk about today. We have a lot to talk with as well because we are going to be joined by Tank today. Jayden Terry will be calling in, probably actually in the middle of us recording this. Jayden will be calling in to talk about Week 1 and everything that went into that, Week 2 and what's coming up, and everything else, his visits and so forth. He was in Maryland last week. He's got, I think, Notre Dame coming up and whatever. So things really starting to come together for Tank, and looking forward. I think he's our first ever football repeat guy come on the show. I think Tyson Mann came on as a football player, then as a basketball player, but I don't think we've had any back-to-back years. We'll start with the captains next week is the plan as we get into Rockford week, but just coming off 5 touchdowns, we figured let's get Jayden on right now because it's a pretty timely thing. You know we're going to talk to Jayden at some point, obviously. You want to talk about Week 1?
Yeah.
So Pickerington North is a long ways away, especially if you miss an exit when you're driving down there.
Who is driving?
Who was navigating?
I wasn't in charge of navigating the whole way until I suddenly got blamed for that, but
so when you're going from 75 to 23, just keep in mind that 23 is one lane that goes off to the right, and when there's a stack of cars, that's because they're all going to 23 too.
Yeah, it's kind of a big one. Don't want to miss that one.
So it was a 6-hour drive, and we got there, and it worked out. We got home a lot quicker. I will tell you that much for sure. Where to begin? First off, thanks to everyone that tuned in, and again, even without video. So again, a huge thank you to the admin at Pickerington North. We put a lot of effort into trying to get that game video, and they did what they could. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's a coach's, and this happens at a lot of places, it was a coach's decision, program decision, that they don't put the huddle cam on. I don't know if it's I think it might be different in terms of how the highlights are shown or something, but they didn't want that huddle camera turned on. I think the NFHS feed was still going, but still to have, I think it was north of, when you add in the Michigan Sports Radio feed, it was north of 3,500 plus unique, I think, looking at the analytics live, and then they'll continue to stack up on that game. So for a radio broadcast, it certainly was worth it going down there, and we thank everyone that tuned in. We will have video coverage for sure. I shouldn't say for sure. It's already been tested. You all know how this goes. 99 there will be video coverage at Grandville this week. We've got it set up already. I've already tested it once at the scrimmage. So unless something happens, internet goes out, whatever else. And I apologize for the first half internet issues. Our understanding was, and our feeling was, that our using a hotspot was going to not work, and that our best course of action was going to be to use the secured Wi-Fi line at the school. Turned out the hotspot was better than the secured Wi-Fi line. So we've only been doing this for 8 years or whatever, and we only learn new things every single time. So the final score was 53-51. Let's start with the first half. So in the first half, Grandville, I would say, how do you say this? They were the better moving of. I mean, both teams would have scored every time.
Yeah.
But Grandville, they give up a kickoff return touchdown. They fumble it inside the 10-yard line at the end of the half, wind up going into the breakdown down 2 scores the way that it wound up falling. So, it was a little bit of like the game script was perfect. Grandville moved the ball easy. I guess they did get stopped once, did they, in that second drive? And that's kind of what put them down a couple scores. But the first half, it really started out where it just felt like it was one of those games where they weren't even going to get a chance to play in a close game because of some early mistakes. And against a team with 15 Division I players, the margin is, that small.
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of what we talked about at the halftime break, was just a few too many mistakes. There was definitely some signs that they could play with that Pickerington football team and be competitive. When you talk about the first opening drive on offense, basically going right down the field and pretty effortlessly. It wasn't really many tough conversions that they had to have. The offensive line was getting a lot of movement. All 3 backs in the backfield were running the ball pretty successfully, and pretty easy touchdown drive right down the field that kind of set the tone that, hey, this offense is going to fool the Panthers a little bit as a team from Ohio that hadn't really seen the T very much. And so that is, of course, a good sign right away. And then it kind of hurt that a lot of the momentum when you give up the kickoff return right after that and don't even give your defense a chance to get out there and try to make a stop. And defense had its hands full the whole night, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we go along here. But right away to give that touchdown up on the kickoff return kind of evened things back up, gave some momentum back to the home team there. And then as the first half goes back and forth, no doubt that fumble down near the red zone, inside the red zone, hurts a lot, especially when they, once again, were moving the football down the field. Looked like they were going to score pretty easily there as far as moving the football again, and then to put it on the turf like that hurt, and just going down a possession, especially when your defense is fighting for their lives on every possession, as they already were.
Yeah. By the way, we're going to be on headsets for this show because, frankly, I was too lazy to swap it back out to the other mic. So if anyone's annoyed by why are they wearing headsets in the studio, we're just going to wear headsets in the studio tonight. It's great fun. So then the comeback. So down 3 after Pick North threw a 48, 50, 53, whatever, midfield to the end zone to Preston Bowman to start that second half. I think we kind of set the half. Grandville's going to have to sell it a little bit defensively. They sold it a little bit defensively, and then Preston Bowman's over the top. So now you're down 3 scores. Third quarter, Grandville scores with Newville, gets a stop, scores again. All of a sudden you got a 1-score game, and then all heck breaks loose in the fourth quarters. Terry and Michael Taylor go head-to-head down the stretch. And I think the most critical thing to me, though, is the Grandville offense, how effortlessly they were able to score. With a little bit, I think, 70 yards passing, I think, was the final total. And Grandville out-earned them like 540 yards to 415 or 430 or something on the game on the whole. So Grandville, certainly, when you think about turnovers and stuff, obviously, but Grandville got just chunks of yardage. And that was the most impressive part, is it wasn't even throwing the ball down the field. It was just chunking up-tempo run game in that fourth quarter, especially the up-tempo part of it, that just, like, it was all-encompassing. And it was as well as I've ever seen this offense move the ball, let alone against a great team.
Yeah, no doubt, considering it was week 1. I mean, we knew they had a lot of returning pieces on that offense, both along the line and in the backfield, and, of course, a quarterback that's had a lot of playing experience as well. So some of those question marks as far as guys playing in their first big moments, that was eased up a little bit, and you could kind of tell the offense was a lot more in rhythm and ready to go. And, yeah, no doubt, it's impressive what they did against a team with that much talent. Guys, 3, 4, 5 guys along the defensive line and linebacker positions that are going to be playing at the next level in some capacity. And so the fact that they were able to kind of push them around, found some big, a lot of ground in the running game was pretty impressive. And really throughout the course of the game, and there was the drive where they had to punt and the fumble and the turnovers in there as well. But like for the most part, on a heavy percentages of the drives and the possessions, you had to be encouraged with the way that they were moving the football.
Okay, so then the final drives. So Grandville gets the ball down 2 scores because, again, Michael Taylor goes for 4 touchdowns. Jayden ultimately goes for 5. But you get the ball, you score. The first of the scores was pretty straightforward, but then you're working at a time deficit. So then the decision goes to go onside kick. And what's going to be lost in the game is that the first onside kick didn't work. Yeah. They got an offsides penalty on the Bulldogs kickoff team that they had to re-kick it. So they get the chance to re-kick it. And we've seen this team before. Actually, we talked to Pickerington North's coach, Hillerich, nice guy, by the way, at the end of the game, and he was, kind of shaking his head about the onside kick and his team giving up, and we're like, they do that 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah. It's something about this team, and Grandville wins games on special teams. They won the Caledonia game on special teams. So, again, terrific job by Jake Kiernan to have to, first off, we're calling these different plays. He had to dream up essentially 3 or 4 different onside kicks down the stretch. The last one winds up working. Great job by the hands team. I don't know who was at the bottom of the pile. Whoever it is, say hi to us on the field Friday. I want to know who was at the bottom of the pile that actually got their hands on it. So they wind up getting the football back. They drive right down the field. They score with Terry. Jayden almost scored, then he punches it in. 5 touchdowns for Jayden. And then the decision to go for 2. And it was a perfect play call. Gibby Connolly is the only person standing in the end zone. Wide open, take the lead, 30 seconds to go, game's over. We'll talk about the last drive in a second because we'll focus on the positive because this is a top 20 team in the country, probably just about. I mean, that stretch, we've seen them do it time and time again. They showed it last year. This team had an ability to win tough games. This is just one more example of it doesn't matter what they're faced with. They just find a way to keep winning, and that's going to pay off down the stretch. Yeah,
no doubt it will. I mean, the fact that they were able to come back from multiple scores there in the third quarter where after that first play on defense, you're giving up the touchdown, you're going down multiple scores. You're not looking like you're going to be in a position like that whatsoever in the final minute to even have a chance. And so to be able to make all those plays, of course, that last series there, the onside kick is, as you mentioned, the coaching staff of the Panthers knew it was coming. They basically had been kicking it the entire second half, variations of the onside kick, and special teams unit, I think, on a whole, probably fair to say they had their struggles on as far as the kickoff return and some penalties and offsides, out of bounds kicks, things like that. But when they needed it the most, able to get first the pooch kick, I believe, right? That went out of bounds. That was at some point, and then able to get more of the spinner there and off the hands of one of the front men of the Panthers. So able to get that, of course, very crucial right there, and then able to drive down the field, which that's kind of what you wanted. Your offense all night had been the most successful unit on the field for the Bulldogs, and so they get that unit back out there, and I don't know if it was as much this drive kind of glanced over it, but the up-tempo, kind of wanted to get more in depth on that as well. As that was pretty amazing what they were able to do. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen that, but first time from the Grandville unit going up-tempo like that, and it doesn't really have to be super complicated, I guess, in terms of play calling when you can just go quickly. You could tell the Panthers' defensive line kind of slow getting back. They were gassed, of course, at that point because they gave up 500-some yards, and they've been run over quite a bit. And so you go up-tempo like that, and you really get moving down the field. So it helps when the clock's running down like that you can go up-tempo a little bit, march right down the field. And I think you really could tell that defense was reeling for most of that last drive, and that all leads up to the 2-point conversion as well, where they're kind of still trying to figure and get their feet underneath them. When are you kicking the extra point to tie the football game here and send this potentially overtime, or are you going for two? And of course, Coach Stiegel, a tremendous play call there on the goal line and the 2-point conversion to find open Gibby Connolly. But
right. And don't miss on the 2-point. I think it was just the 2-point conversion tries. He flipped Jayden and Sadinsky.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he put Sadinsky on the left, Jayden on the right. So he gave that one little shift and look, and because of that, Pickerington North coming out of the timeout, their defense were all shifting on that front line. So I don't know if they had matchups, kind of where they had to be based on what way the Grandville offense was flipped. But that was I think a little bit of a thing is right before that 2-point conversion play, that Pickerington North defense was very unsettled. They were completely changing their front line still. Grandville might be able to run it in because I don't think they were quite set. And I think, back to the up-tempo, I think there were 2 offsides penalties on that up-tempo. No, it's something to put in the back pocket. Steele showed a little bit of a flex bone full house type hybrid thing as well that could bring something down the stretch as well. But I think it's a little bit of like they were able just to stick out of the straight offense, but also they put just enough on tape for other teams to have to prepare for other things, and that the playbook gets much deeper beyond what we just saw week 1 with all of those different looks, and we'll eventually, whether it's Rockford week or even deeper into the season, we'll start to see. I think there's going to be a lot of unique things that come out of what this offense wants to do, and maybe tempo winds up being a part of it if it kind of puts the defense in the wrong position at points down the stretch. But then the final drive, I mean, there's only so much to say about it. I think they were nearly in position to get the stop. There winds up being the pass interference penalty, which, it's one of those things where, like, there's not a ton Jayden can do. I think it was Jayden that gets his feet tangled up with the receiver. There certainly was an intent to it, and the receiver might do a good job initiating the contact and even selling it out a little bit as well, which also is part of that game at that point at the end of a game, and you have to be ready for it. But also, shout out the play before Jayden broke man away from ball completely on a big hit out there in the secondary. So, ultimately go up down the field, and then a junior kicker. Well, he had to make 2 field goals at the end as time expires. So, like, you kind of have to tip your cap at that point in time that a junior high school kicker can go out, make a 31-yarder, have to then make a 25-yarder right after, and nailed them both on a night that it was a little breezy. Not a ton breezy because it was 105 degrees in the press box. It's going to be 50 on Friday.
Really?
It's going to be 50 degrees cooler.
Half the temperature.
It was 99 degrees when we got out of the car.
Yeah.
It was they had a thermostat in the press box. It was I think peak was at 105 or 106.
It was 105, I believe. Yeah.
Peak of 105 in that press box.
Yeah.
It was bad. But regardless, I mean, hats off to Pick North. That's a team that was hungry too. They obviously have a lot of talent, and that's going to be a good team, and I think they look forward to they had to play like one of the best teams in the country with a bunch of 300-pound linemen, and then they had to play a T the next week. I think they're going to look forward to playing a normal game next week, and they'll probably get into. I mean, that's a good. That is as like when they would get one-on-one in space, and you could see it with that secondary too. Like that's as talented of a team as. I mean, we did Belleville 2 years ago. That's the only team I've ever seen. Maybe some of those De La Salle teams we've seen are the only teams I've seen that match up just visibly talent-wise with what was going on there.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you kind of saw them settle in as well. It's hard to believe we both kind of were making the comment as we're watching this game and seeing some of the playmakers that they have all across the field is how is there a team that they played the week before that shut them out?
They didn't get a first down until the fourth quarter.
Which is just insane to even think about because, I mean, we've talked about numerous times the talent that they have. And so this isn't, I don't think it's an overrated type situation. It's just like the team that they played, St. Ed's, is just has to be, and they're just absolutely crazy. I don't even know. I mean, but I think you could tell a little bit. Maybe they were a little hesitant. Maybe the confidence wasn't quite there. The first drive on offense, just a little shaky, but that didn't last very long by any means. They kind of figured things out. When you've got that much star power, they can get the ball out, and they started making some plays from there on out.
Yeah, nope, they absolutely did, and they win it by 2 in the end. And what a contest it was, and still, even in the loss, a lot of good things to take away for Grandville. All right, we're going to quick take a break. When we come back, we'll have Jayden Terry. Tank will talk about his 5 touchdowns, the big win, and what's coming up next for him, the team, and his recruiting and everything else going on. Jayden Terry right on the other side of this.
We are Centennial Securities,
an independent firm with a team of committed professionals. who strive to exceed our clients' expectations by giving outstanding service.
We're proud to be part of our community where we live and work.
Gear up this season with the MGN Shop, featuring everything from t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, and outerwear, to water bottles, stickers, and other accessories that help show off your style and your support of Game Night, the Grandville Bulldogs, and more. To shop, click on the Shop Merch tab at the top of MichiganGameNight.com and browse nearly 50 items. And be sure to check in frequently as new items are added throughout the season. That's the MGN Shop through MichiganGameNight.com.
Upgrade to Music Jams Premium to get uninterrupted listening on all your favorite tunes. Click here to start your 7-day free trial.
If it's important, it's not worth compromising. Which is why with Farmers, you don't have to compromise quality to get great savings on your insurance. I got this.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Game Night is presented in part by Farmers Insurance, Bennett Center Agency, for all auto, home, specialty, life, and commercial insurance. See what a Center can do for you. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Game Night. Really excited to welcome on our first for a couple different football seasons, our first repeat guest here in terms of the athletes. Grandville now junior running back Jayden Terry. Tank joins us here on the podcast and on the pregame show. Jayden, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, and I feel so weird, like being a junior now that you say that.
Well, you make us feel, well, so the worst part is I'm already getting old, but like the fact that we saw your brother come up as a sophomore, him do 3 years, then you follow, and now here you are already a junior. It's starting to make me feel real old real quick, and I don't quite know what happened. So that's one thing I don't fully appreciate yet at this point in time either, but we're gonna get through it. The 3 years certainly have gone by quickly watching you play, and you started off your junior campaign in quite the fashion. 5 touchdowns, of course, the ultimately heartbreaking loss to a team that's as good as any team is what you guys are going to see, period, in the state of Michigan. But I guess just kind of take us through that game, take us through it from your perspective, the 5 touchdowns, the heat. What were some of your main takeaways from that game as a team? Obviously the tough loss, but a good individual performance, and a lot of good individual performances on the whole for the team.
Yeah, it was a very hot day. Going through that whole day, I just knew it was going to be hot. So it was just something we had to prepare for. Every single time I came off that field, I saw this red maroon cooler, and I would just put my face in it, and it was the biggest relief ever. I swear, that was probably the only reason why I was back on that field the next drive. But yeah, it was just staying to it, making sure I do my thing. Didn't really matter how much I got tired. I was just hoping, we would get that win because it is a really good team, and that would really put us on the map for it.
Yeah, absolutely did. And even in the loss, you guys, I think, raised a lot of eyebrows with that sort of especially comeback performance. And like you said, you did do your things. 206 yards, 5 touchdowns, a couple circus act touchdowns as well. When you're scoring on those sort of weaving plays, and we've talked about your nose for the end zone, what is it that's going through your mind? Does it slow down when you're kind of on those weaving cutback runs? Does it speed up? What do you think you're kind of seeing? What's going through your head when you're in the middle of some of those long weaving touchdown runs?
Well, I'll definitely say it is 100% more slower than it was since my freshman year. I feel like it's just learning the game more and understanding it. So as I see, people over pursuing, they want to, come, try to tackle me, they probably sprint over. I mean, I just look at it as if I make one cut, these dudes are going to go the opposite direction because they're coming down so fast. So I just and also I was want to get in the end zone, And especially at that point of the game where we really need to score and get back on defense, then yeah, that's just something I gotta do.
Yeah, and you kind of go over how the game slowed down since you were a freshman over the last couple of years. But in general, go back to this past offseason. I know you came on, you put a little bit of size and muscle on as well. But what were some of the main things in your game, both physically and mentally, that you worked on this offseason and were a real point of emphasis to be better for this year?
I would say getting bigger, getting more weight on me. That would definitely help me with yards after contact, stuff like that. Having to run someone over. That's something that would really help me with my game. I feel like I'm really good at the whole speed stuff, the elusiveness, stuff like that. And so adding on the more weight and being able to lower my shoulder and hit someone is something that really helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we actually said that when you came out for warm-ups, and I had seen that scrimmage and whatever, but you came out for warm-ups and I'm like, oh, Jayden, we knew that you had worked on trying to get a little bit bigger in the offseason. Like, okay, Jayden has added that extra element now, I think, to the game. When you look at him standing next to the other running backs, he's added that size, and it's going to be that much more dangerous, especially down the stretch run and against some of the physical teams like Rockford and Caledonia and Davison. We'll talk about them in just a second. Let's kind of take a step aside from Grandville, and we'll take a couple steps forward for you in terms of this recruiting process, because I know it's picked up quite a bit this summer. What are you at, 6 now Division I offers?
Yep.
Okay, so 61 offers. Visited Maryland last week. You have a Notre Dame visit on the table. Kind of just tell us about that whirlwind process, getting to travel out to Maryland, how excited you are to go to Notre Dame, and that entire recruiting process right now.
The whole recruiting process is crazy. It's fun. Sometimes it gets frustrating, but it's just something that I got to make sure I enjoy and not try to overthink, because this is supposed to be fun. Maryland was really good. It was a hot game, and it was also a blowout. So, seeing the game wasn't the most exciting, but getting to know how Maryland is and getting to know their culture was really cool. Going on to this week for Notre Dame, I feel like I really don't know much about them, so getting to know them would be really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Who's Notre Dame playing this weekend?
I think it's Northern Illinois.
Okay, that makes sense. I believe.
I'm pretty sure.
Regardless, it just goes to show kind of where you're at in this Notre Dame's come and calling for, you at least got to visit Notre Dame. I think that goes to show enough about where this process is at, and I think it just is going to be the beginning of some things. Kind of, we'll get back on the field a little bit. It kind of goes to show the hectic time it is to focus on that, focus on the games as well. Tell us about practice kind of so far this week and the team. How well have you been able to move on from that last win, take the positives from it, take the momentum from it, and start focusing on a Davison team that you guys have some unfinished business against?
After that loss, everybody wants to get back on that field and start showing how we really are. Davison is a good team and a team that we lost last year. So being able to get our get back is something that we're going to have to really look forward to and really grind at practice, because it is a big week. So really just getting everybody back into that mode and getting to learn how these guys look. So it's really just getting back into that mode.
Yeah, and I think kind of along those lines, too, the one difference this year, you now being an upperclassman, and you look at this deep running back group, you've taken on, obviously, a little bit of a leadership role, along with, Easton Sadinsky, the senior, but you have the sophomore, Gavin Love, and you've got Terry versus Love 2.0. You have DJ Hardiman as well as sophomore. Tell us about the role you've taken this year and what it's been like to step into a little bit of a leadership role, helping some younger, really, really talented guys, along with some experienced seniors like Easton, but being able to kind of help along some of those younger guys and, bring all that talent into the running back group.
DJ and Gavin, I love those guys. I've been playing ball with Gavin for a long time. So being able to work with him is really nice. DJ, he's a really hard runner. Like seeing him on JV last year, I knew he was good, but I did not know he could run the rock like that, bro. I did not know he could run the rock like that. So being able to work with those guys is great.
Yeah, it for sure is. I know. So like Coach Stiegel, Marcel and Cam's senior year, I remember we're doing an interview at the end of the year with him, and he's like, he said, like, just listen. There's I think, what were you guys, 7th and 6th grade, whatever the time, like, they have brothers that are, like, just as good as or better. They're coming. They're playing together at this level. Just wait. And, well, son of a gun, he was right, and we certainly are seeing that. I mean, Gavin's batting 1,000 right now. He's got 1 varsity touch and 1 varsity touchdown. So, I mean, you can't do too much better than that. I guess 2, he had the 2-point conversion. So, no, I mean, it's exciting, and I know, Easton as well. The offense on the whole, humming. You guys out-earned Pickerington North by like 150 yards last week. We saw a lot of different elements mixed into the offense. One part of this weekend's Davison is you've got a little bit of a quote-unquote head-to-head matchup with AJ Hill, who is a terrific running back, another 3-star. I think you two are right there for the best running backs in the state. When you get a chance to match up against a guy that was being recruited by kind of similar schools and so forth, is there a little bit of a friendly rivalry that the two of you have now, also a second year getting to go head-to-head as kind of the leading running back roles?
Yeah, me and AJ are cool. I used to talk to him a lot on social media.
Okay.
Sometimes we went on same camps like three times in a row.
Okay.
It was really funny. But yeah, me and AJ are cool. But yeah, on the field we're definitely going to be going head to head for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's wrap it up. Let's talk about Davison first, or to kind of finish things a little bit. Pickerington North, so much talent around the field, but probably more of a spread team, both sides of the ball, the way they normally want to play. This is a Davison team that they only scored 3 points last week, but they are physical. And, of course, you know that. You saw it last year. Both sides of the ball, they're really big up front, a little bit smaller maybe at the linebacker position. What are some of the keys that you guys are keeping in mind going into what's going to be a game against a really physical team that's also really talented, maybe a little bit of kind of a Rockford primer in that way?
Steve actually mentioned that today, how that Davison is a real physical team, and when they went against Rockford, they just out physical them, and he felt like that was the reason why they won that game. So I feel like if we're just more physical, we could actually just beat these guys, and that's really the part of our offense. And if we step it up on defense and be more physical, then that could be the same too.
All right, absolutely. Love to hear it. That I made a similar point to Coach Stiegel. That's not very rare that I make smart football points, but I'll take this one. Jayden, thank you so much for your time. Good luck Friday, and good luck the rest of the season. Thanks, and have a great evening as well.
Thank you, man. All
right, Jayden Terry here on MGN. Always great to talk to him. We'll be right back here on Game Night. All right, welcome back to Dawg Pod, and welcome back inside the MGN studios. Thanks as always, Bennett Center Farmers Insurance Agency, Centennial Securities, for presenting Game Night on Michigan Sports Radio and MGN, all of our podcasts, everything else we do. Thanks, of course, to Jayden Terry for joining us this week. Always great to get a chance to catch up with Jayden and see all that he's got going on, which is a lot, of course, right now between football season and recruiting season and everything else that he's got going on. We'll keep an eye on that going ahead of what is next for him as he continues to trend closer and closer. I think we're going to be getting a Power 4 offer here shortly. So that'll be interesting certainly to see. But regardless, everyone else in the MAC at least certainly and beyond have him offered already. And he's got a chance to show out again this week against a team that I think was won in Davison that when I was talking to people before the season, they've kind of been and they lost 21-3 week 1 to De La Salle, so it almost feels very similar to what Grandville had to face last week in terms of a hungry, good team. But they were one of my teams that I definitely had circled as, I think they do count. We're going to reprise the dark horse debate. I think they do count as a dark horse state championship contender. I think everyone but Belleville probably is a little bit of a dark horse state championship contender, although Clarkston almost took him out week 1. But this is a team, having seen them last year and kind of knowing what they're going to be this year, which is a lot of the same pieces, at least at the skill positions, changing some things at, of course, a new quarterback, but I think a very physical team, and it's a very talented team. Again, somewhere close to 10, probably high-level Division II or Division I players here, Chandler, but the difference is this is going to be a test that I think is going to more be along the lines of Grandville getting ready to play the likes of Rockford and Caledonia down the stretch run of the season, because this is a team that I think the top-line story about them is how physical they're going to be on both sides of the ball, where Pickerington North had the talent too and was not afraid to out-talent you and outspeed you outside. This is a team that, they have the speed, they have the talent. We saw that last year, the way they attack things. But for the most part, they're willing to line up. They're willing to bring a tight end and an H-back and maybe another tight end in, blast you on that side of the ball, and be physical on defense as well. So this is going to be a little bit more of a physical expected test, also against a team that's seen the T and stopped the T before.
Yeah, exactly. I think that plays a big part of it as well. And so they might not have as many recruits in terms of collegiate guys playing football for them on either side of the ball as what Pickerington North had. Still a much different challenge, I think, for the Bulldogs and what they'll be seeing. And, of course, you look back to that matchup last year, so two teams that have now seen each other within the course of a year and have a lot of familiar faces there that'll be playing against each other once again. And so I think it'll be interesting to see exactly where this Grandville team is in terms of a physical style of play, where Pickerington North, of course, had a ton of tremendous players, but they hadn't seen the T very much. You could tell that they were a little confused by it. Davison has seen it last year. They played very physical against it, kind of got things figured out in the second half, and on the defensive side of the football as well, where Pickerington North had a ton of receivers out wide and playmakers that they could get the football out, a tremendous talented quarterback. This Davison team going to be a little bit more willing to power the football as well. I think in the running game, another tremendous running back, which there's very few times where there's going to be running backs of the same talent or similar talent as Jayden Terry, and the Bulldogs have found two of them in the first 2 weeks of the season. But I think a much different task ahead for the Bulldogs in terms of what they're facing with this Davison team, and the defense as well, going to have a bit of their hands full with the physical style of play and trying to run the football a little bit more than maybe trying to air it out all the time.
Yeah, I think A.J. Hill for Davison, probably he and Jayden, I think, go back and forth being discussed as the top two backs in the state, and A.J. also a 3-star. Now he, I believe, is a Ferris State commit, so deciding to go to the top level division, and I know you talk to coaches at Grand Valley and Ferris, and they say we're stealing kids. We're stealing 3-star recruits as our goal to come and play for us instead with the stuff that's going on now, especially. He's gonna be nasty in that system. By the way, like his we'll talk about Hill more, but he's gonna be nasty for Ferris. As a Grand Valley alum, I don't appreciate that. So yeah, let's talk about. So first off, this game last year, you mentioned it. You talk about game script. Think about the Pickerington North game script to this game script. Very similar. Granville had a fumble in the first half that kind of cost them. They got behind. They had to chase the lead in the second half. The difference was they didn't get the points against Davison last year. They did against Pick North. So there's a lot of similarities there. Let's kind of take a look at Davison, how they compare this year to last year. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, what Granville's going to have to deal with. The first obvious main change is quarterback. Last year, Sawyer Glennie. Big senior, not necessarily overly flight of foot or didn't want to run, first and foremost. He could move in the pocket pretty well, but more of a stand-in-the-pocket type passer, and we saw that down the stretch. They started throwing the ball quite a bit. This year they bring in Jackson Dosh, who last year as a sophomore, we had him on our board, and we actually thought we would see a lot more of Dosh than what we even did. He can really run. He's much more of a dual threat, and a system that when you add in Peyton Coakley, who's their tight end, almost a Travis Kelce type tight end, Kyle Pitts type tight end. He's a great receiver. He's still 6'2", 235, but they'll line him up in the slot. They'll line him up on the line. He'll be all over. But Coakley, very dangerous. He killed Grandville last year too. I remember he was constantly would get these big third down grabs. So they have him. They have a group of H-backs led by Caleb Charkin, who we'll see on their side of the ball. They are not going to be afraid to be in 12 or 21 or 22 personnel all the time. And this year's team, they've got speed. They've got great guys outside. We'll talk about that return in Wesley Hughes and Braylon Naves, who we saw last year, Coakley, like we mentioned. But for the most part, this is a team with a little bit more running-based quarterback that wants to run the football, can run the football with running personnel. And by the way, they have a 4-star, 310-pound tackle in Ben Nichols, who just picked up an Alabama offer. So that's what we're talking about in terms of we saw a team that was trying to spread you out to run through open gaps. This team's trying to punch a hole in your face to open up those gaps.
Yeah, no doubt. Much different style of running the football, and probably going to be much more focused on it than maybe what we saw the Panthers a week ago until later in the game, essentially. But this Davison team, I mean, you kind of list it off, and you just hear the balance and the talent all across that offensive unit when you've got a quarterback that they like that now brings a running element that can really make the defense think, and is something that's given the Bulldogs some issues in years past. Now, of course, new defensive coordinator and coaching staff there, so in a defensive scheme as well, so that we'll see how that affects the Bulldogs. But of course, the talented running backs, you've got two guys in the backfield that are threats. You've got the tight end that can be in the middle of the field, doesn't necessarily have to be a vertical threat, but can be underneath the defense in the middle, and they still got playmakers on the outside that they can get the football out to, and they can beat you if you start to play too aggressive and crash the line a little bit too much to stop that running game. And of course, when you've got the four-star talent along the offensive line too, that tells you that they're willing to run the football, and they've got the talent to push some guys around, and they like that unit. So, I mean, you just right there, you hear those names and those guys, and they've got a little bit of everything that makes them such a balanced unit.
Oh, it for sure does. And, and then you've got A.J. Hill who can line up in the slot, he can line up at back, he can do so many different things as well. That's what makes them dangerous, and I really think they're going to be able to really run the football. And then whether it's, we saw trick plays too last year, but then play action. Cortez Porter is their they always have like a little speedster slot guy, speedster or outside guy. They'll kind of move him around. He's dangerous. Wesley Hughes picked up a Wayne State offer after a good first week of the year. And then Braylon Naves, who's a Central Michigan commit. I remember him being really nasty, 6'1", 180. Like I said, Coakley, of players that stood out to me, I remember Coakley having like 4 or 5 third down conversion grabs to just move the chains, and I think he caught a touchdown in that one. He had 4 touchdowns on the season. So, this is, like you said, such a balanced offense. They can be 50-50 or they can be 70-30 leaning to the run game, and they can just kind of, they can play that style. Again, though, they only scored 3 points last week. So they're going to be hungry, and they did it against a De La Salle defense that we know how good De La Salle defenses can be. So, you have to, I think, again, take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but regardless, it's interesting, and they're a really unique offensive team, and I mean, up front, they're incredible. Let's look at the other side of the ball, the defensive side of the football, where they're going to be trying to stop Jayden Terry and company, and the defense will try to play a little bit of a role in that big Hill versus Terry battle. May not be the last time we see Hill versus Terry. There might be 4 years in the future that we see those two going back and forth. If well, I guess he'll wind up looking like he's going to Division II, but you never quite know where. Who knows where anyone winds up nowadays? Right. You might move after a year anyway. This defense. So last week we talked about the 3-3-5 base. This is, if you remember from last year, I'll call it kind of a 4-down lineman base, but it's not 4-down lineman. They'll be willing to put 3 down standing edge, or maybe even just the 2 defensive tackles down and a couple of standing edges, but they're going to win up front for sure on this defense this year. Last year was a linebacker corps led by Carter Harriman, who was maybe the best linebacker in the state of Michigan. Went on to play at the MAC level, and he had like 15 tackles or something ridiculous, or more, almost 20, I think, in that Grandville game last year. This year's team, though, is very much smaller at linebacker, 175 middle linebacker, 180 kind of outside linebacker, nickel hybrid, 205 outside linebacker. They're smaller at linebacker. But up front, Caleb Charkin, 220-pound edge. Warren Kane, Western Michigan commit, 6'4", 230, defensive end, edge rusher. And then in the middle, the 300-pound Saginaw Valley commit, Jaden Lockhart, along with Caden Nicholson, 6'2", 240. He'll be a player at the next level. Also, Ben Nichols will rotate in at 310 pounds, like we talked about, at defensive tackle. So they may not be quite as strong this year at linebacker, and they lost even outside backers too. They may not be quite as strong and big at linebackers what they were last year, but the entire defensive line pretty much that we saw last year dominate up front is back. So a Grandville offensive line that's big, but Coach Steele will talk about, they're a little bit undersized of what they have been. They don't have those 6'6", 250 to 300-pound mashers, or close to 300-pound mashers. They're some good speed, and they like what they bring to the table, but this is where the game's going to be won for the T. Grandville's going to have to find a way to control 300 pounds of muscle, 230-pound edge rushers, and so forth.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you hear some of those sizes, and it's a little bit more built to maybe stop the T than what we saw last week with Pickerington North. And the talent that they have off the edges, they've got a couple guys right up the middle at that tackle position that can eat up some blocks and can make it difficult to push around and try to create some openings in the middle of the field like the Bulldogs like to do. And so they've got some talent and some size along there that can kind of make things difficult. But I think where things will really be interesting is to see what the Bulldogs offense is able to do against a slightly maybe less talented linebacker crew, guys that lost at least the big name value from what we saw last year. And so it really takes the defensive line and linebackers playing together well in order to stop the T when in terms of alignment, and as well as shooting some of those gaps. The defensive line can try to do everything they can to hold their ground. But you need those linebackers to be willing to play physical and come up and make some of those tackles as well. And so I think that's kind of where the big difference will be in that side of the ball in that matchup, and seeing if the Bulldogs maybe can have a little bit more success on the ground game, especially in the second half as the game goes along and you wear some of those guys out. Hopefully, at least for the Bulldogs' sake, is what they're thinking, and be able to wear the Davison defense down as the game goes along. Where last year they kind of held up and the offense stalled out a little bit. This year they're hoping they can kind of put that full game together.
And they'll be playing some guys both ways. Certainly more. I mean, Pickerington North didn't have anyone really both ways. You'll see, I think Cortez Porter, Braylon Naves will be in the secondary along with receivers. Charkin, like I mentioned, he'll be an H-back. Nichols will play both ways a little bit as well. Warren Kane might play a little bit of a fullback or tight end role in more power sets because they've kind of got they have a two fullback power eye that they run around the goal line sometimes. So there will be more two-way players here than what Grandville had to deal with, had to deal with last week with no one playing two ways for Pick North, which next week they won't have anyone playing two ways because the Rockford has 120 kids. So yeah, that's really kind of the base overlook. It's going to be, as always, it's going to be a game up front, but I think there is a chance for more movement for Grandville offensively on this Davison team than what they had last year. Will Grandville score 53, 51 points again this week? I would highly, highly doubt it. If I'm wrong, great. But there's not going to be that much. The game's going to be slower, for one. I mean, Davison will take their time. It's going to be, again, it's going to come down to two things. Can Grandville control that up front on offense? Can they find a way to neutralize those big guys? And then we're going to see the defense has now had a week. This is a little bit more of a physical type game, might lean more into what they want. I think we're going to get to make a lot more notes about where this defense is after this week than after the first week. The first week is, I don't want to say it's a throwaway, but with that much talent, a spread offense in a variety that we won't see much of, or they won't see a ton of in Michigan. I mean, Rockford will be four wide sometimes, but they're going to be more powerful this year. I think I think this is really kind of the first test of both sides of the ball. This is a team that lines up more along the lines of what you'll be seeing in the OK Red, just a more talented version of it than what most of the teams bring.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll learn a lot this week. Defense, as you mentioned, just a really tough matchup in week one, and they made some adjustments, and I'm sure get to see a little bit more of that as far as what the base defense is, how much are they going to mix up the looks and against the Davison team. But I think, we'll learn a lot as far as how they're going to play in more of a physical style offense, one that I think Coach Center, based on what we've heard in the offseason and then going into the week one as well, is kind of what he's looking to bring on that side of the football. And so a matchup to where maybe they can showcase that a little bit more. And there again, I think a really talented unit on offense, as we talked about for Davison, so you don't want to set the bar too ridiculously high as far as the Cardinals probably going to put up some points as well. But I think you'll be able to see some of that improvement already just from week one to week two. Part of that because of the matchup, but also is you'll be able to see that improvement from the coaching staff and from the players kind of putting things together as they go into this one.
All right, I think that wraps it up good. Granville-Davison, 6:30 Friday night on the air, MichiganSportsRadio.com and at MI Game Night on YouTube. Video coverage via the Huddle Cam at Grandville. We will be there with the call. Cannot wait to see what this one brings. Can Grandville get to 1-1, or will they be the best 0-2 team in the state of Michigan? Here's your takeaway. Whoever loses this game will be the best 0-2 team in the state of Michigan.
True.
I will say that one unless Muskegon loses.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll take it there. It's the battle to not be the best worst team, the worst best team, the best 0-2 team in the state of Michigan. It's Grandville versus Davison, 6:30, MichiganSportsRadio.com, at MI Game Night YouTube. Chandler Timmer, Nate Dreyer. See you next time.